The headlines had quieted. The outrage faded into background noise. But Rachel Monroe, newly released, knew the truth was still buried deeper than the media could dig, darker than the public could stomach. She wasn't innocent. Not entirely. But she hadn't killed her children. The first place she went after her release wasn't her old home. That place was gone, boarded up and haunted. It was a self-storage unit on the outskirts of Clearwater. Inside, under a dusty tarp and a broken crib, she found what she'd hidden months ago, the original DNA test envelope, torn open by Adam, resealed by someone else. It wasn't hers. Rachel's hands trembled as she unfolded the report again. It looked official. It even had the lab's letterhead. But in the bottom corner, barely visible unless you were looking for it, was a faint watermark. Brent Behavioral Clinic. Her pulse froze. Why would a DNA report be printed from her therapist's clinic? Lucas Brent had access to everything. Therapy files, behavioral logs, family history. She told him about Adam's paranoia, about her fears, her doubts, even her most private regrets. And she remembered something now. A question he'd asked once during a session, scribbled in his notepad afterward like it meant nothing. If Adam wasn't the father, would he stay? She never answered. That night, Rachel waited in her car across from the clinic, watching the glow of the second-floor office window. Just past midnight, a figure emerged. Lucas, dressed impeccably as always, even at that hour. He didn't see her as he stepped into his black luxury sedan. She followed. The drive led her to a gated property an hour outside Tampa with no signs, no mailbox, just a long dirt road and a decaying security camera half buried in ivy. Rachel parked and walked the rest of the way. At the end stood a weathered house, lights on inside. She approached slowly, heart pounding. Inside, she saw Lucas not alone. Sitting across from him, at a table littered with papers and vials, was Lilith Hart. Rachel barely suppressed a gasp. Lilith's back was to the window, her long jet-black hair cascading over her gray turtleneck. But her posture was unmistakable, calm, poised, calculating. She passed Lucas a folder and tapped something on a tablet. He nodded, leaned back, and smiled. They were working together. Still, maybe always. And then, Rachel saw at a large whiteboard behind them. Names, photos, timelines, and at the center of the web, her children. But just as Rachel pulled out her phone to capture the moment, a twig snapped beneath her boot. Inside, Lilith turned, and their eyes met through the glass. The truth beneath. Rachel didn't run. She should have. But as Lilith stared at her through the window, something in Rachel snapped, not fear, not even rage. It was resolved. She stepped into the house like a woman walking into her own funeral. Lucas was the first to speak, calm as ever. "Rachel," he said, as if greeting an old friend. "You've come home." Lilith moved fast, blocking the door, but Rachel didn't flinch. She raised her phone, hit record, and pointed it directly at the wall of evidence behind them. "You drugged them," Rachel said, voice steady. "Both of you. You framed me." And Adam helped. Lucas just smiled. Framed is such a heavy word. Lilith crossed her arms, blue eyes glittering with contempt. "You always needed someone to blame. Even now." Still clinging to the victim narrative, Rachel's voice cracked. "They were my babies." Lilith's reply was ice. "And mine was the life you stole." 10 years earlier, Rachel had met Lucas Brent during postpartum therapy after her first child. Vulnerable, isolated. He'd listened, encouraged her to stop taking birth control. "Natural is better," he said. What she didn't know was that Lucas ran more than a clinic. He ran an underground fertility experiment, using donor insemination without consent, targeting women in crisis, women like Rachel. Women like the 2 others who later accidentally died. Lilith knew all of this. She'd once been one of his test subjects. Her relationship with Adam wasn't just romantic. It was strategic. Present day. Rachel had recorded everything. The files, the board, even the cold admissions slipping from their lips under the weight of arrogance. But none of it would matter if she didn't get out alive. Lucas moved first, lunging to grab the phone. But Rachel was faster. She smashed it against the table, splintering wood and shattering glass. The micro SD card fell to the floor. Rachel dove for it, pocketed it, and bolted through the back door into the woods. Lilith screamed behind her. A shot rang out. Not a warning. Rachel didn't stop running until she reached the highway. Bleeding, disoriented, she flagged down a trucker who took her straight to a police station outside Gainesville. The footage, the files, the audio, it was enough. More than enough. By morning, the FBI had raided the Brent estate. Lucas was gone. Lilith was found unconscious, overdosed, but alive. 3 weeks later, Rachel sat on a bench outside the courthouse. The charges against her were dropped. Officially, she was exonerated. But she wasn't free. Not really. Then a car pulled up. From the passenger seat stepped a man with a cane, face thinner, but unmistakable, Adam Monroe. He didn't look surprised to see her. "They told me you were dead," she said quietly. Adam didn't answer. He just stared. Finally, Rachel asked, "Why?" He looked away, ashamed. "Because I couldn't bear knowing they weren't mine." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "They were ours, whether or not you shared their blood." He didn't reply. He got back in the car, and the vehicle drove away. Lilith Hart now lies in a psychiatric facility. No visitors, no charges yet. Lucas Brent remains at large. Rumors say he fled to Europe. Others say he's dead. No body has been found. Rachel moved out of Florida, changed her name, started over. But sometimes in the dark quiet of night, she still hears their laughter and wonders what was real and what was planted. Because in Clearwater, not every monster hides in the shadows. Some wear wedding rings, some sit behind therapy desks, and some bake cookies while death brews in the bottle beside them.